Save Gooch. He is the 8th person to drown on the Outer Banks this summer.
New information tonight in a plan to build a juvenile detention center in Isle of Wight County. It will go near Shirley T. Holland Intermodal Park in Windsor. But for the first time today, people who live there got to share their concerns with officials. 13 News Now reporter Nico Clemens has that story.
Isle of Wight County residents still not sold on a juvenile detention center coming to town, like Mary Sharon.
They never took time to say, let's do something valuable for the kids.
Tonight, the community and Windsor Council members still have many unanswered questions. Officials from Isle of Wight County, Windsor, the Department of Juvenile Justice, and Department of General Services met Friday morning to get everyone caught up to speed.
And we're very confident we're going to be a good neighbor in this community.
Director of the Department of Juvenile Justice, Andy Block, says safety and security are what they're focused on most.
What we're really trying to do the best treatment and rehabilitation we can.
State and county leaders are eyeing properties in and around the town of Windsor that are part of the county's industrial park. County leaders say they've tried to keep everyone informed about the proposed project, including town council.
They provided us with a letter in April supporting the project, so we felt that they were fully informed.
I tried interviewing Windsor's mayor, Karita Richardson, as well as many of the council members. All declined to go on camera. However, Richardson told me her biggest concerns are location and the narrow road. The EDA held a special meeting in June to discuss possibly moving the location because of the presence of wetlands.
We've already identified issues, concerns about wetlands, so those are issues we plan to talk with the state about as well.
This was really the kickoff meeting. There's going to be a larger community meeting in the future for county leaders to answer many more questions. No date for that meeting right now. Windsor Town Council, they're meeting Monday at 5, where